A memo from Attorney General Barr to uphold the Constitution and our constitutional rights, a little bit from Judicial Watch, an update on Austin Steinbart, and lots of other things. So stick with me, I'll be with you in a minute. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I wanted to start with this because I think this is a very important memo that Attorney General Barr has sent out to his U.S. attorneys. They need to be looking out for protecting our constitutional rights. And he said specifically in it, the Constitution is not suspended in times of crisis. And here are the different documents. I blew them up a little bit here so you could see them better. And this is what he says. It came out on April 27th, which is when I'm recording this, and it goes to all the United States attorneys. So, the current national crisis related to COVID-19 has required the imposition of extraordinary restrictions on all our daily lives. Millions of Americans across the nation have been ordered to stay in their homes, leaving only for essential and necessary reasons, while countless businesses and other gathering places have been ordered to close their doors indefinitely. These kinds of restrictions have been necessary in order to stop the spread of a deadly disease, but there is no denying that they have imposed tremendous burdens on the daily lives of all Americans. In prior memoranda, I directed our prosecutors to prioritize cases against those seeking to illicitly profit from the pandemic, either by hoarding scarce medical resources to sell them for extortionate prices, or by defrauding people who are already in dire circumstances due to the severe problems the pandemic has caused. We have pursued those efforts vigorously and will continue to do so. Now I am directing each of our United States attorneys to also be on the lookout for state and local directives that could be violating the constitutional rights and civil liberties of individual citizens. As the Department of Justice explained recently in guidance to states and localities taking steps to battle the pandemic, even in times of emergency, when reasonable and temporary restrictions are placed on rights, the First Amendment and federal statutory law prohibit discrimination against religious institutions and religious believers. The legal restrictions on state and local authority are not limited to discrimination against religious institutions and religious believers. For example, the Constitution also forbids, in certain circumstances, discrimination against disfavored speech and undue interference with the national economy. If a state or local ordinance crosses the line from an appropriate exercise of authority to stop the spread of COVID-19 into an overbearing infringement of constitutional and statutory protections, the Department of Justice may have an obligation to address that overreach in federal court. I am therefore directing the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Eric Dreeben, and Matthew Schneider, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, to oversee and coordinate our efforts to monitor state and local policies and, if necessary, take action to correct them. They should work not only with all Department of Justice offices and other federal agencies, but with state and local officials as well. I think it's kind of telling that he picked somebody out of the Eastern District of Michigan. Yeah, I wonder what big city's in that. Detroit. Anyway, the end of it is many policies that would be unthinkable in regular times have become commonplace in recent weeks, and we do not want to unduly interfere with the important events of state and local officials to protect the public. But the Constitution is not suspended in times of crisis. We must therefore be vigilant to ensure its protections are preserved at the same time that the public is protected. I thank you for your attention to this important initiative and for your service to our country. So there we go. I think that's a very important document. We do know that Bill Barr is standing for the Constitution, that he is upholding it. So I think this may be setting things up for later on about whether or not the governors will open in a timely fashion. And along those lines, I wanted to show you this because this just keeps coming up over and over again on Twitter. If you happen to have a Twitter account, you understand. If you don't have a Twitter account, It's important for you to realize what's going on out there because Twitter is a huge source of information. This is where a lot of people are getting their news. Now, it may not be people that are, over 50, but the ones under 50, a lot of people get their news from Twitter. The fake news is spread far and wide. Well, not only that, but there are some people who are supposed patriots who are not doing us a service because they're spreading things that are not necessarily true. This is what this particular Frank Soa did. And he said, breaking, Attorney General Barr has just finished putting together orders to compel all 50 state governors to open for business and, quote, end illegal martial law, stay-at-home directives by May 1st. Mnuchin said failure will have repercussions of losing federal funds. Okay. Now, when I first saw that, I thought, wait a minute. I don't know that. I haven't seen anything about this. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I miss stuff sometimes. But, my first reaction when I see something like that is, tell me where the source is. Give me the source. I want documented evidence to prove this to me. And this person right here, this clearing the fog, kind of felt the same way and said, please do not trust this account. This is textbook disinformation. Take a grain of documented truth, which would be like what I just read you from Bill Barr, and then add in unsubstantiated claims that superficially appear to be feasible and present them as if they were facts. And here's the interaction they had before. And really, this person got mad at him. I'm going to show you the very last one because note, I'm no longer going to respond to tweets that ask for sources or links. That's a rabbit hole that had me frozen off Twitter. Well, for a good reason. If you can't provide a source or a link of some valid source, then you really shouldn't be promoting it. And so read my tweets, read news, learn to research beyond internet search engines. It'll do you a world of good in this newspeak Trump world. Thanks. Well, we've got to have actual evidence. Now, I have a few people on Twitter that follow me that like to tag me. And sometimes what they tag me with is stuff that has no basis. I mean, it's just someone saying something. They're telling a story. So there's no evidence to back up anything they're saying. It doesn't mean that what they're saying isn't true. It just means that there's no evidence. So be careful of your sources. Just because somebody says it on Twitter doesn't make it true. And just because we read something doesn't make it true. Check it for yourself. And this was one that I just, happened to have this tweet from Jim Jordan that I could rely on. And, so they have the actual document. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you. Just be careful of your sources. Make sure that you check them. Think for yourself. This is one thing that the right has different than the left. The left tends to have groupthink and they all think the same and they don't really question what they're being told. And so we need to be careful. We need to really document things. And while we may believe something is going on, a certain thing, we need to make sure that we've got documentation before we stand firmly on it. Because if we can't document it, folks, it's not going to help out our movement at all. So just be careful, okay? And then this one right here I wanted to show you because Schumer is going to introduce a No PR Act to stop Trump from placing his name on stimulus checks. What else do you have to do here, Schumer? I mean, you have no other thing to do. And so he's planning to introduce legislation that would prevent President Trump from placing his name on any additional coronavirus stimulus checks. The proposal, dubbed the No Politics in Pandemic Recovery Act, or No PR Act, would prohibit taxpayer money from being used for any, quote, promotional activity, including Trump or Vice President Pence's name, likeness, or signature. Schumer is pushing for the provision to go in the next coronavirus stimulus package. Oh, just sad. And the funny thing is, it'll actually probably take more time and it'll delay things even more. So, yeah. And it wasn't even Trump's decision to put his name on there. I believe Mnuchin did, didn't he? I think that's who was responsible. So anyway, I'll leave the article down below. Remember, they're in the description. You have to click something if you're like on a mobile device. You have to click it and it'll pop open that description, like a little triangle or something. And so Judicial Watch says, look at this. D.C. mayor appoints former Obama official Susan Rice to reopen D.C. Yeah, how's that gonna work out, folks? Whew. Is that the person you would want in charge of anything? No, 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 no. So, yeah, I had to laugh when I saw that one. It's like, really? That's the person you choose. Well, DC's not going to be open anytime soon, that's for sure, because we know she's going to be towing the deep state line there and not wanting to do anything about it. Keep them closed as long as possible. And then there was another release of another transcript from George Papadopoulos. I read about half of it. This is page 31. Just kind of struck me as I was going through. It's really just kind of a bunch of babbling. The confidential human source right here just keeps trying to goad him into saying something about Trump. And he avoids it. He really wasn't talking about Trump very much at all. And so he just kind of changed the subject each time. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting after President Trump's purposeful misspelling of the word Nobel, as in Nobel Prize. And, he spelled it noble. But of course, he knows when he does stuff like that, it's done on purpose. And he was pointing to how one of the things he was pointing to was how the press used to be a noble profession, and it's not anymore. But anyway, I just thought it was kind of odd, too, that this comes out shortly after his tweets about that. And noble energy. Is there anything about noble energy? I don't know. I just thought I'd point that out to you. But the rest of it so far, nothing I saw at this point. I'm on page 31 and there's 94 pages. So I don't know. You can go ahead and read the rest of it if you want. I haven't found anything. I'm sure there's probably something in there interesting, but what I read sure wasn't. It was a really boring conversation. Anyway, well, because a lot of it's blanked out too. Maybe that would make a difference, but I don't think so. They were just kind of like not a conversation I'd be part of, because there's just not much substance there. Anyway, this one, Bill Gates says his foundation is abandoning other initiatives to focus 100% on coronavirus. Well, it's a kind of short article. Interesting that he is doing that. I thought it was interesting when it says that he's focusing 100%. He's all in. That must mean he's desperate. That's just what it sounds like to me. There's a little chart down here that I thought was kind of interesting. The Gates' growing influence on funding for global health. I thought that was interesting. And that is, I believe, from Vox with a V, as in Victor. Yeah, Vox. Just kind of interesting that they were pointing it out. That's what article this references. So anyway, there's a link to that other article from Vox if you want to read that too. But this was an interesting little article. It's not real long, but good to read. And then I wanted to point this out to you because, we've assumed that Sleepy Joe is the definite candidate. However, here's the problem. There are still 24 delayed and reconfigured contests with the combined 1,555 delegates at stake. Biden has already amassed 1,293 delegates, but it takes 1,991 delegates to be the nominee. So you gotta wonder if they're setting things up so Biden is not going to actually be the nominee because he won't have enough votes. Just thought I would mention that. There's a good little article here that you can read. It's not very much. This is just one of the researchers on the research board. This is what they thought of, and they wanted to put their thoughts out there. And I think it's probably very true. I don't see how Joe can make it, but you never know. And then this is another one from the research board that I did want to pull up because we need to think about this. If you have at all the possibility of becoming part of the local government around your city or your county or whatever the case is, even in your state, I think you need to take advantage of it. Now, I don't have the energy or the ability to do that. I couldn't even get a video done yesterday because I was too tired. But, we need to get as many patriots out there as we can in public office because, as I've covered before in a different video, that's what the left is doing. They are purposely getting people in the county, the cities, the states, and if they can fill those up with Democrats, then that's what we're going to be faced with. So we need to step up to the plate if we can. And even if you can't run for an actual office, maybe there's something else you can do to help the people who are running so that they can win. Just a thought. This was a really nice little article here that one of the researchers wrote to encourage people to do that. So patriots need to step up. I think it's time for us to start doing that. We appreciate what President Trump has done for us, that he sacrificed all of the business opportunities that he had. I mean, he had a great television show going on that he could have been part of, and he chose not to. He chose to step down. He chose to take on the presidency, and we needed that desperately. But I think we need these lower positions picked up too. So if at all possible, if it's something that you're capable of doing, try to become more active in the government of your city or your state or county or whatever. So that's just an encouragement there. And speaking of crazy liberals, Jennifer Rubin, let's go back to her. Remember, she considers herself a conservative opinion writer. Yeah, but she's at WAPO, and she also contributes to MSNBC. So she's their idea of what a conservative is. They have no clue. And anyone who is actually conservative, they consider alt-right. So it's just kind of funny that that's what they do. But this is what she was complaining about. You likely will not enter a store without a mask, sit in a crowded movie theater or restaurant, or fly on a plane. Before there is a V, you might not go to a gym, the beach, or a mall, no matter what the social distancing. And here's an article from the WAPO, I'm sure hers. How much of our lives will coronavirus change permanently? Yeah, well, you know what? We're not going to put up with that. And if you read the comments, most of them are like that. Here, I recommended that she get this mask. If she wants to wear a mask, she can wear that one. And, this whole thing, that they really need to just chill. They are just making it worse. They're just fear-mongering. That's what they're doing. And I was listening to Hannity tonight, which is when I'm recording this on the 27th. And he was mentioning how he goes to the grocery store and this kid, the same kid, waits on him, helps him out and everything, is stocking shelves, and he seems to be doing okay. Well, some of that is really true. When you look out there, you see the people that have been there continuously. They are stocking shelves. They're out there with the public all the time. You would think that if anybody was going to get something, it'd be them. So maybe we need a study to look at the people who have been out there and exposed constantly. Maybe we need to look at them and we need to see how they're faring, because it doesn't seem that many of them are coming down sick. We're not seeing a lot of, stories about that. A worker at such and such a grocery store falls ill, or Walmart or whatever. Maybe it's not going to happen quite as bad. Maybe if you're actually wearing a mask and you're wearing gloves or you're taking care of yourself, maybe it's not as dangerous as they're touting it to be. I'm just leaving that out there. But I thought that was a good question that he brought up. And it does seem to warrant study, in my opinion, because these people have been out there stocking shelves and being cashiers and everything else. They've been continuing their jobs. They haven't stopped. So are they not getting sick? Are they getting sick? Maybe it's a glimpse into what's going to happen once we start opening things up. And then I wanted to show you this one because we all need a laugh sometimes. So, yeah, this was trending tonight on Twitter. Hashtag fake president. It's some really nasty stuff. I mean, I'm not going to show you the hashtag thing because there are some really nasty things that they put up there. But yeah, see, she was robbed of the presidency, so he's a fake president. That's what they think. And so you go down here and it's like, some of them I knew November 2016. It was obvious that night. At least 350 million. Of course, there's only 330 some million. So I guess they can't count. But anyway, I just had to laugh at it because they put it out and it's got 15 whole likes and 18 retweets. So, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking. So there were, 18 people? Only 15 liked it. So only 15 people evidently thought that she was robbed of the presidency. Oh, I had to put that one down there. Sorry, had to give you a little laugh there in the middle. Oh, and then we go on to this, and those who follow the 17th letter of the alphabet, you know what's been going on with this Austin guy. Well, he was back in court again. And so this guy says, perp walk, take two. Yeah, he did fail to prove that he is an employee of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And this guy right here, Truth Hammer, he went to the courthouse. He lives right around there. So he went to the courthouse and he was there and he's showing you that, yes, he was back in there. There's the board again. And he was dressed in an orange jumpsuit. And because he'd been arrested a second time. And he is going to be released, and the judge ruled he can't be in violation based on failure to fulfill an impossible condition. The impossible condition was trying to go out and get a job, because he can't go out and get a job because of the economy. I assume that was the situation. I'm not sure. And then a DIA officer entered a statement that Austin is not and has never been associated with them in any manner. So that's what was going on. And he gave more details down here if you go on down. And so the thing that concerns me, folks, is if he does something bad, then it really could be dangerous to our entire movement. And there was a statement, there was a document, I can't remember, he does have to go for a mental competency test, mental health competency evaluation. So they are concerned about that. And this person right here says, look at the letter from the Amen Clinic's lawyers to his parents. According to the letter, he is a 29-year-old ward of his mother who is paying his bills and made the appointment at the clinic. And if you go down far enough, or probably if you just go to Truth Hammer's page, you can see the judge stated Austin is obviously not capable of being employed, therefore the requirement to seek or demonstrate employment has been removed as a condition of his pretrial release. And the judge added new conditions that Austin must return messages or calls to his pretrial officer within an hour. So evidently he has been not returning the calls from this pretrial officer when they call him. He's not been contacting them back. She stated that, quote, doing imaginary work for a job he doesn't have will not be accepted as an excuse for a delayed response. When Loby is this, his pretrial services officer, Justin Loby, was tasked by the court with verifying his employment standard procedure, but was unable to do so. Austin claimed he could have somebody call Officer Loby's superior, but they would not be able to talk without Loby. When Loby didn't accept that, Austin threatened him and said, this isn't going to go well for you. Loby felt threatened, and the judge agreed, having some very strong words for Austin about not threatening anybody again, or this won't go well for you. And then after that, she stated very clearly that she believes Austin is a danger to the public and asked if anybody could think of a valid reason to hold him. Nobody could come up with legal grounds, unfortunately. And so he does say he was, to his credit, composed, polite, and articulate the entire time. He never cracked a bit. The entire court, including his own defense attorney, believed that Austin believes the pile of, you know what, he's shoveling. Nobody accused him of lying. They think he's delusional. So, anyway, the judge said, and this is paraphrased because he didn't write it down exactly, but it's clear to me that you have no gainful employment with DIA, but I'm not going to convince you of that. So, yeah, they really just don't believe that he is. Anyway. So this is the whole thing. I will leave the thread down below for you and you can check it out on your own. Folks, I wish I could say that things pointed towards all those things that he said were true, but it's just simply not the case. And you really, if you are following him, you need to reevaluate things in light of this, because this is pretty serious. The idea that the 17th letter of the alphabet needs to go for a mental evaluation should scare people if that's really true. So, no, he's not. He's perfectly sane, and Austin probably needs some help. Okay? I'm pretty sure he does. So, anyway, speaking of other things going on Twitter, James Woods here had a little issue with his account because somebody hacked it. So, yeah, the fake scammer with the sunglasses. Folks, nobody's ever going to pay $200 for sunglasses. Okay, maybe Donald Trump. But, yeah. So, this was his last real post. And then the last two have been this. So, don't click on them. Good grief. It's been hacked. And so we're just going to have to wait to find out what happens. He's going to have to try to get it back. I'm sure he knows by now. And then another Patriot that's been having Twitter issues is Jordan Sather, who has just gotten out of his third Twitter lockout in a week. Again, for a compound we must not name. I feel really bad for these people because this is what's happening. Now, there's a lot of people out there who are alternative journalists, digital journalists, citizen journalists, whatever you want to call them. Okay, I don't necessarily promote any of them completely because there's always things I disagree with people on. So just because I mention somebody doesn't mean that, I look up to them and they're the only people I follow. No, I follow lots of people, okay? Whether I believe as they do or not. And, it's okay that you do that, but that's part of the movement, is to think for yourself and to evaluate what you're hearing. So I hope that you don't believe everything I say 100%, because then you wouldn't really be thinking. You'd be like the 4 a.m. talking points, and you'd just be following whatever I say. And I hope you don't do that. That's why I put the links down below, because I want you to go to those links and see for yourself and evaluate it for yourself. And like I said, a lot of times, if I'm not sure if it's true or whatever, I try to convey that to you, but it's up to you to do the thinking and to decide whether, those things are accurate or not. So again, when I mention people like Jordan Sather or all these other different ones, Praying Medic and just various ones that are out there, it's not that I'm saying, they have 100% truth. Nobody does. We're human. We make mistakes. Just be aware of that. And the thing is, think for yourself. That's the important part. Listen to what other people say, but think for yourself. Okay? Anyway, I wanted to show you this one too, because the guy who was in charge of, the whole Flynn thing, the Mueller guy who was in charge, his name was Van Grack. And essentially Van Grack, there he is, Brandon Van Grack, he was supposed to be an espionage expert. And so that's why they kept him on. But he is neck deep in this whole Flynn case, which I'm hearing Flynn's supposed to be exonerated this week, so we're going to see what happens. And so this is a whole thing about it, and you can go through and see some of the stuff that he was involved in. And this actually was a report they did back in 2019, 2018, somewhere there. And then there's this nice thread here by Technofog that goes through the whole basic outline of things, and it shows from the documentation where Van Grack did things that were pretty shady and not ethical. And then I wanted to show you, because I know you hate it when I do this. I'm sorry. It was a very long Technofog thread. So the big question here, after you get done with all the big thread, it really was a very long thread. With all this corruption and criminal activity related to FARA, why would AG Barr allow this lowlife to return to the DOJ and run the FARA unit at the Justice Department, as noted in his DOJ online resume? Well, here's his online resume and everything. And so Van Grack should be in jail for colluding to overthrow the government. What's going on? Why is he or anyone on the Mueller team back in the Department of Justice? Former U.S. Attorney Joe DeGenova may have the answer. And here was a radio interview with Howie Carr. This was a different one than what I played the other day. And so they were talking about it and, how it was all happening. He says, I think Barr is letting them commit hara-kiri. Remember, the guy running that case, Brandon Van Grack. Van Grack is part of the Mueller cabal. I think he's letting them dig their own grave. It's like in that scene in The Irishman when De Niro is over in World War II and he's having the German soldiers dig their own grave. And he says, you know what? I kept saying to myself, why'd these guys keep digging? They know what's going to happen, and that's where Van Grack is. He's a German soldier digging his own friggin' grave, and he just happens to have a name like Van Grack. So, anyway, that's what I thought I'd show you on that one, because I thought it was good. And then speaking of this one right here, this clip, I didn't find it on YouTube, but I did find it here. So, this was where they were talking about Flynn being completely exonerated. And I don't remember if it was in this one or if it was in a DeGenova thing that I heard. But they were also talking about President Trump pardoning Flynn after he was exonerated. Okay. And I thought at first, why would he do that? But maybe this is a possibility. If President Trump would pardon Flynn, then the deep state wouldn't be able to come back later and try to get Flynn on something else. I think maybe that was what they were trying to say. And I don't think it was in this one. I think it was a DeGenova something that I listened to earlier. I don't know. After you hear a few of them for a bit, they all kind of start blurring together. But yeah, so that's a possibility too. And maybe that would be smart. And just on the outside chance that President Trump would not be elected, which I just don't see any way that's not going to happen. But we can't get cocky about it. We got to make sure that we actually get the vote out and we make sure people are voting. But in the outside chance that he wouldn't be back, then it would protect him from whoever the next person would be, Joe or whoever. If you are interested in doing a little more to the cause, to further the cause, and to get the truth out there, this is a little description of how to become a meme warrior if you want to be. So I just thought this would be really good for you to read through if you're interested in doing that. It kind of goes through all the little details that you might want to know. And the thing is, they do a really good job of digging, but they don't have a lot of people putting it out there. And that's one reason why I do what I do, because I'm trying to take it from them and put it out to you so it's useful. Okay? And then the next part, I want to show you this phrase that they had posted, the researchers. And it's by Henry Kissinger. And he said, if you control the oil, you control the country. If you control food, you control the population. And in light of that, I wanted to point out a little something about Tyson Foods. First of all, The researchers are starting to dig and they're finding a lot of Clinton connections here. Okay. A lot of Tyson money, I believe, went into the Clinton campaign years ago. So I haven't been able to go through all their research yet in that line, but I did want to share this part with you. Tyson Foods issues dire warning in full-page New York Times ad as lockdown threaten U.S.'s food supply. So they are shutting down a couple of plants, and one of them, they had this big ad. Here's the ad right here, and I'll link to this so you can read it if you want to. But it's kind of one of those, oh, we got to shut down a couple more plants. You may be out of food pretty soon. Oh, we may have to stop your food supply. And, that means some of those, it says, as pork, beef, and chicken plants are being forced to close, even for short periods of times, millions of pounds of meat will disappear from the supply chain. But anyway, one of these happens to be located here. The Tyson Foods closed plants in Logansport, Indiana, and Waterloo, Iowa, where at least 182 cases of the virus originated. Well, I do need to tell you that, being somebody from Indiana, I've been keeping track. They have this little map thing here where you can find out what the stats are. This is not for the whole state. This is only for this particular county. Now, this is the county that the Tyson Foods is in, where Logansport is. So they've had 1,025 positive cases. They had one death, and they've tested 1,462. 70.1% of the people they tested were positive, which is extremely high. I mean, there are places in Indiana, there was one district that had 7%, I think it was. Another one had 11%, 19%, 14%. I remember seeing those. I was looking over them earlier today. But anyway, right here is Cass County where they are. So that's their situation. But what I really wanted to show you is down here, because this is the demographic distribution for that particular county. And if you look here, you'll see that instead of it being heavy down here where all the rest of them were, it's pretty heavy up here. And they don't give the death because there was only one death, so they won't give the stats for it because they say that it'll identify the person. So anyway, you'll notice that most of them are right in this area from 20 to 59. These areas right here. Okay? But if you look over here in the percent of cases, there's not a big black population there, so that doesn't surprise me. But if you go down here, the Hispanics, look at this. 59.6% were Hispanic. Probably because that's who they have working in a meat packaging house. That's just kind of what happens in those types of processes, that it's hard to get regular Americans to go and work there. So quite often those are jobs that Hispanics will take, and like I said, the Americans won't. So it could be, there could be a lot of things going on there. It could be that maybe more of them are not getting the word out, that they're not understanding. Or it just could be that in Indiana, generally, the Hispanic population has actually been hit harder than any other population except the black. I think they're about the same, if I remember correctly. But anyway, and it's also mostly male, which is not surprising, but it's a little higher than most of the others. And then it has 1.7% were unknown what gender they were. It's a little creepy. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. It does kind of hold out that probably that is true, that there were a lot there, but still, how many of those worked for the plant? I can't tell you that. I just know that out of Indiana, it does kind of stand out. Let me show you the whole state. There we go. In the whole state, it's this one right here. So it's a little darker. So, yeah, this is Indianapolis here, which is really big. You've got Lake County up here, which is kind of Chicago suburbs. very metropolitan. You have St. Joe County is Pete Buttigieg's city. Over here is Fort Wayne, and then this is the Logansport. So kind of interesting. The best place to be if you're in Indiana is down here, which is the southernmost part, which would be the warmer part, which maybe they've had more sun than we have up north. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to point that out to you. And then the very last thing I have for you on this is this one right here. And I'm not going to read it to you, but it's just something that one of the researchers brought up and is asking a question. What about it? The Spanish flu. Was it really the Spanish flu? What was it? And so I thought I'd leave this. It is a researcher's opinion, and it's based on some articles. There's an article link at the bottom. Let me get down here, right here. I just wanted to leave you those, and I don't know if this is a continuation of that one or what, but it doesn't have a link on this one. But I thought it was interesting information that you might be interested to read. Okay? So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.